European leaders, including new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, are continuing to put pressure on Russia to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine ahead of planned peace talks in Turkey. Germany has reminded Moscow that any failure to join the ceasefire offered by Ukraine would lead to further sanctions. Deutsche Welle correspondent Thomas Sparrow joins us now from Berlin. Thomas, g'day. So how confident are Germany and other European countries that the peace talks will yield results?
Germany and other European countries are sceptical. They see this as a potential first step in the right direction to stop the war in Ukraine. However, from the German perspective, from the European perspective, a ceasefire should come before talks and not necessarily after talks. And that's the reason why European leaders, and that includes also new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, have been putting pressure on Russia to agree to this idea of a 30-day ceasefire with Ukraine as a precondition for further talks that could then be the base for discussing what peace would look like in Ukraine. So all in all, this is seen as a step in a potential right direction, but European leaders are no doubt skeptical and at least cautious of what this all means, and they're also discussing how they can position themselves further. It's important to stress that European leaders are trying to work together when it comes to common positions, when it comes to their views on Ukraine and Russia. And that's why in recent days, several European leaders from the UK, from Poland, from Germany, from France, actually visited Kiev to try and also underscore their support for Ukraine and also discuss what that potential peace would look like.
So Germany has a new government. How big of an issue is the Ukraine-Russia war for Chancellor Friedrich Merz?
The war is indeed a very big issue here in Germany, and specifically for the new government under Friedrich Merz, and that has several reasons. One, obviously, being the fact that Germany has supported Ukraine from the start of the war. Germany, as many other European countries, believe that borders should not be moved by force, and as such, they have strengthened step by step their support of Ukraine. But there's another element which is important from the German perspective, namely that Germany has welcomed a large number of Ukrainian refugees since the war in Ukraine began, and that has meant that here in Germany, the debate about the war in Ukraine, the debate about how to end the war in Ukraine is one that has a lot of relevance. And that's why it's also been taken very seriously by the new German government. And that's why, as one of the first measures put in place after that new government came into power only a few days ago, was that visit by European leaders, including Friedrich Merz, to Ukraine.
And how do Europeans view these proposed talks and, more broadly, the military and political support to Ukraine?
This political and military support for Ukraine is very probably going to continue, especially as there is no sense that the war could end anytime soon. As I stressed, it is seen as a first step, these potential talks, but European leaders would certainly want this ceasefire to come before potential talks, and that means that political and military support for Ukraine would probably continue. And in fact, again, from a German perspective, Germany has increased its military spending, and part of the promises by the new German government is to continue to do that. Not only, obviously, for support to Ukraine, also to support Germany's own military forces, but political and military support to Ukraine is a priority that very probably will continue from a German and from a European standpoint.
OK, Thomas Sparrow there in Berlin. And now another update from the ABC's chief elections analyst Anthony Green on results from the recent federal election. He says the LNP has held onto the seat of Longman in Queensland. Terry Young has retained the seat for a third term in a tight result against Labor. He leads by 330 votes, and Anthony Green says the count is near its completion.